Yeah, lots of exciting sport happening in South Australia at the moment. You just can't stop enjoying yourself, can you?
I love it.
You are the happiest bloke I've ever seen today.
Well,
we'll get to the bottom of that later on in the show.
Those shoes.
Yeah, we'll have to bring them on so the viewers can see those. Hey, time to talk about some BX. We don't try and get across all the sports, so let's get to BMX. And we've been fortunate. The chairman of the Cove BMX Club, Chris Hanna's been able to give us some time. Chris, appreciate you coming in, mate.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Mate, before we start and get on to the other stuff, I just talking to you off air, the start of the race for BMX bike, the start hill.
Yep.
I was asking you how high that was, and you said it was 8 metres. You said you haven't done a lot of riding. I did as a promo a couple of years ago to help a couple of BMX boys out. When you get up there, that 8 metres looks like about 80 metres, because as you go down, you can't actually see where you're going, can you?
That's spot on. So the 8 metre, which is the Olympic standard start hill, has got a transition, so it fades away after about 2 or 3 metres, and you can't see. So up there, it's pretty. You got to be pretty game to go at that full tilt. So hats off to those guys that do it.
My word, yes.
Now, you're part of the complex at Cove.
Yep.
Which includes the netball, the soccer, the footy, the Aussie rules,
Yep.
and whatever. You're still part of all that?
Yeah, so we're
I
in the same
understand.
complex with the Cove Sports and Community Club.
Yep.
But you've got some exciting news coming up for BMX, from what I hear.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're in the sort of final stages of development or design of the new Sam Willoughby BMX facility that's going to be built at Majors Road. It's about to go to the tender process. We're in the sort of final designing stages, and that's going to have an 8 metre start hill, like you mentioned, as well as a 5 metre challenge start hill. So it'll be the sort of probably the best track in certainly South Australia, if not Australia, with the aim of hosting sort of major events at a national and world level. So,
Chris, you know when you talk about designing a track, how long's that process taken from start to where you are now?
the process has taken about 4 years
Yep.
from start to finish in terms of getting council approval and
stuff.
government funding, and we've had a fair bit of support from both local council and state and federal government. So to do that process has taken about 4 years, but the design phase has probably taken a good 6 to 12 months in terms of track length, width, the size of jumps, what the what's called a line, so what line is on the jump. So in terms of have we got doubles, triples, tabletop step-ups, all the designs of jumps, going through that process has been a sort of really interesting process to go through.
Like BMX bike took a spike, maybe about 8 years ago, it took a really big jump. It was almost became like a cult sport, for a better term, and then it kind of plateaued out. Where do you see it now?
Because it's an Olympic sport, it's sort of got that pathway to the Olympics. It probably was in its prime time 8 to 10 years ago.
Yep.
From an amateur level. So now it's got more of a pathway. It's become more of a more competitive sport rather than a sort of a pastime.
Yep.
But we're sort of trying to get that back in terms of, you can do it from the age of 2 years up to we've got some older riders and 70-year-old sort of riders. So it certainly suits a family environment to get out there and come out from 2 years on what we call Strider bikes, which are the bikes with no pedals. So it's certainly got a place for a whole family from, as I said, from 2 to any age.
A guy like Sam Willoughby would have had probably a big effect on kids riding and whatever. Is there still an involvement there with?
Yeah, so Sam currently lives in San Diego, and he's been part of the design process. So the new track at Majors Road is going to be called the Sam Willoughby BMX facility.
Okay.
And he's certainly been on those calls, and he logs in from San Diego. I think it's about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning when we have those meetings, and he's been part of the design as well as the layout and look out of the track. So he's certainly got involvement. He's currently an elite level coach, so he's coaching his wife, who's the current world #1 female rider, who's an American, Elise Post, or Elise Willoughby now. So he's still heavily involved in the sport and has certainly been involved in the development of his namesake back here.
Chris, we've spoken to a lot of sports just before you came on, the SANFL, talking about how COVID affected them. For BMX bike, did you have to shut down much to restart again?
Yeah, so as a sport, we're considered a contact sport, so we had to follow the same rules that basically footy did. So we shut down about mid-March. We were able to get back into training about mid-May, so with a bit of help from BMX SA and the 7 clubs sort of came together to develop our COVID action plan to get back on the track. We managed to hit the track in sort of mid-May for coaching and training, and raced from the first week of July. So we've been back now for 5 weeks of racing, and most clubs now in the state are back up and running racing events. So,
and you've got what coming up? You've got some exciting stuff. Before we get onto that, the new complex you're talking about at Halloran Hill,
Yep.
we said it was. Is it standalone? It's just going to be a BMX track. There's not going to be a soccer ground.
It's standalone in its own right, but it is next to the mountain biking trails that are there. So there's a mountain biking trails already there, and they're sort of incorporating that as part of it. But it will be its own closed facility, and it'll be across the road from the new soccer facility that's being built there. So Cove Soccer is also moving up to that way as well. So.
Is there a flow over? You know, sometimes we see it basketball, netball, for example. You know, they play a bit of both. Is there mountain bike riding and BMX? Do they tend to?
There is a bit of a
Even though they're
transition.
different,
Yeah, there is a
do
bit of a
they
transition. A lot of the guys that'll race BMX will also have a mountain bike and do some
Yep.
trail work and for training and just enjoyment. So it's certainly got a transition there. There's been some past examples of guys that have done that with their careers and taken it on and further and travel the world on a different type of bike. But in terms of, we're actually about to go through a process combining of the dirt sports, I suppose.
Okay.
So Oz Cycle will come in, which will be a combination of both mountain bike and BMX along with road and track. So there'll be sort of a dirt license for those that want to do mountain bike and BMX.
Okay.
How'd you get involved, Chris? You don't, now, I'm not having a crack here, but you don't look to me like a bike rider.
No, not overly, no. You're right.
But you've obviously, it's a sport you love, otherwise you wouldn't be chairing the Cove BMX club. How did you get involved in that?
We got involved through kids. So I've got
Okay.
3 kids. The 2 oldest race themselves. So we started off with my lad, started racing with friends of his, and we sort of just tagged along, and you'd get roped into helping out. And like any sort of club, it's a volunteer-run organisation, and it takes a lot of people, and so it just takes people to put their hand up and sort of try and help out and do the best they can to help the club in some way, shape or form. So that's how I landed in this role, and happy to do it.
Mate, good on you, mate. A lot of people disappear, drop the kids off and disappear. So full credit to you, mate.
Exactly
Before
right.
we let you go, September, October, there's a couple of big events coming up for BMX.
Yeah, so the BMX state titles are being held in Mount Gambier this year. So they're 24th, 5th and 6th of September. So over at the Blue Lake BMX Club over in Mount Gambier there. So it's a cracking track and a bit of a holiday for families to get over there for a couple of days and support the local community over there. And then in October, we've got a round of our state series at our track at Cove. So we were meant to host a national series round, but due to COVID travel restrictions, it got cancelled. So we'll host on the Sunday, have the state series round.
Mate, really appreciate you coming. We look forward to the new track getting set up there at O'Halloran Hill.
When?
You and I will be out for a ride, mate.
When do you expect?
We're hoping to turn dirt sort of November, December this year,
Okay.
with completion in sort of June, July next year.
I can
Phil
see
will
you
be straight out there on his bike.
out on the ramp, mate. I'll be on the start hill. Hey, appreciate you coming in, mate. Good
No
luck
worries,
with it,
thanks,
and
Sammy.
good luck
Good
in
on you, Chris.
September, October. Stay with us still. Plenty to come on the show.